Welcome back everybody to another one of my time-lapse video builds, and in this video we're going to be looking at my build of the monogram P-38 J Lightning. Now this is the really old monogram boxing. It dates back from the 1960s, I believe, late 1960s. So it's definitely a dated kit. Had some issues, bad fit issues, toy-like detail. A lot of things are just missing in it. So I kind of did a quick build, throw it together, get it done. Just kind of just have a fun build with it. I didn't do too worried about the inaccuracies or the missing parts or just lack of detail. I just threw it together, filled some seams, painted it up. It looks really good. So pretty happy with it. So let's get on with that before we move any farther. My name is Sean and this is Sean's Aviation. So in a slightly different start to most aircraft with the P-38, I didn't start with the cockpit. I actually started with the modification to the gondola. Because I was building this as a twin-seat night fighter, I had to cut off sort of the standard single-seat rear decking, and there was a separate piece that got placed in to add the second canopy and create that second cockpit. So as you can see here with the age of the kit, I did have to do quite a bit of puttying and whatnot to get it to look proper, for the gear to be up. And then I went ahead and started building the cockpit. Very basic cockpit detail, very soft, kind of blobby. But with a little bit of work, as you'll see, it does turn out looking somewhat decent. So here you can see me gluing the cockpit into the sort of center gondola and getting everything glued together. As mentioned a few times already, this is a very old model and the fit is very bad. So it took quite a bit of work to get this to sit in there properly. You'll also notice I don't install the gun bay in the nose. It just didn't quite want to fit properly, so I just kind of, as you'll see, went ahead and sort of finagled the guns at the later stages to make them fit. And now that I do have everything kind of installed, you'll see if you've been able to make it out, the center, the nose, basically, the gun doors and that nose cone. Brutal, horrible, horrible fit. So you'll see there's a lot of puttying and sanding that goes into making this nose profile look the way it's supposed to. So here you can see me starting to install the canopies. Again, being an older kit, it was a little bit of a toy-like canopy. The upper portion was designed to be hinged open and closed, so I kind of had to modify it a little bit to try to make it look a little bit more accurate. It's not very easy considering kind of the age and the shape of the canopy. There's no real way to hide a lot of that folding mechanism. But with a little bit of effort with some Elmer's white glue, a little bit of time and effort taken, it does look decent. And then you can see here I go ahead and just get that masked off pretty much immediately so I can start getting some primer on it, basically, to take a look at how I work with the sanding. And as you'll see, even after primer, there's a lot of putty and sanding that went into this. So here I got the first coat of actual primer on the entire airframe. Surprisingly, it wasn't as bad as I expected. All that effort ahead of time with the putting and sanding worked out. There were a few little spots here and there I had to clean up, but overall it didn't look too bad under primer. And then here you can see me starting to get the base prepped. It's just a pre-cut plaque, basically wooden plaque base. I picked up at Michael's. They're like $2 a pop. A little bit of prep work goes into it, and then you can drill the holes, add the wire, and then go ahead and finish it in whatever you do. I usually like to use this stain and then a bit of a gloss coat, but you could paint it. You could do whatever you want with it, depending on what you decide to do with it. So you'll see me go through that whole process. here we are, just sort of like a mid-build benchmark update on the P-38 before I go any farther. And as you've seen, I do have the aircraft painted and I have it gloss coated. And that means it is ready for decals. So this aircraft, as I said, it is ready for decals. It looks good considering what it started off with as a late 60s molded, you know, monogram model. It turned out looking okay. It's not perfect. I never expected it to be perfect, but it's going to look decent when it's done. The one thing you'll have, if you've been watching, you actually may not have noticed the way I painted it. So I painted it the black, and I lightened it to a dark gray, so it's not pure black. And the reason for that is because when you do pure black, for example, these props, you want a little bit of a different in the color. You want some things to look different than others. And I also went ahead and I painted a few random panels. I don't know if this is going to show up in the video because of the gloss, but this aileron, there's a section here on the leading edge of the wing, one of the nose panels up here, and then a couple of other random spots. I just kind of shot it with a pure black over top of this dark gray, and that gives it just a little bit of variation in the paint. And the props and spinners, which are here, are also going to be a pure black versus a dark gray. Again, I'm not sure if that's showing up on the video or not because of the gloss and the way the camera captures color. But anyways, it's basically done. At this point, it's going to be ready for gloss coat. Sorry, it's ready for gloss coat. It's already done. It's going to be ready for decals. So I'm going to go ahead and start decaling this relatively soon. Once I get the decals done, I still have to gloss these props at some point and put the decals on the props, which I'll do a little later. I've also got the drop tanks here. I'm actually going to paint the drop tanks aluminum, make it look as if it was a, you know, they're using day fighter drop tanks instead of night fighter drop tanks. Possibly even gray, depending on where the aircraft, I think if it's a Europe-based aircraft at the time, the P-38 would have had, it still would have been painted gray in Europe. I got to do some research on that, but I don't want to paint the drop tanks black. I want to make it look like that the aircraft is using day fighter drop tanks and not night fighter drop tanks. So that's something I got to do up. So I got to paint those still. And then once I have the decals done, I'm not going to do any type of black wash on this because it's already a black airframe. So once I get the decals done, I'm going to seal those on with another quick layer Future, and then I'm going to flat coat the entire thing and seal everything down. And once I do that, I still have quite a bit of work left to do on this because I need to mask off a section here around where the turbo superchargers would be, because there's a section in here that's going to be painted Alclad aluminum, and I need to mask off and paint for those. But I don't want to do that to the very end because that aluminum, I don't want to have to mask over top of the Alclad to paint any black. So once I'm done with all of the painting and all of the masking and everything I will ever have to do on this airframe, the very last thing I will do will mask off, paint the gloss black Alclad, seal it, pull that masking tape off, and then I never have to do it all again. That is the end of this airframe. Might be a few, like I have to look again at some pictures. I think the fuel caps may have still been painted red, even though it was a night fighter, so I got to do that. I got to get the guns fitted on. There are a few other things here, like the intakes that go on the outside of the booms here for the oil coolers. I got to get those installed. So there's a few little things I need to go through and touch up on this, but it is definitely on the home stretch. So it's going to have, between all these three, this one is the one that's going to need the most work to get it finished, but it is coming along. And yeah, it's coming along. So I'm very happy with that. It's looking good. So stay tuned. You'll get to see this final push on this model. And then here you'll see me, I'm masking off around the exhaust area, the superchargers I just painted in Alclad in a jet exhaust or an exhaust color from Alclad. Here I'm masking off around those areas as there was sort of an aluminum area that was left unpainted. So I'm masking off to paint that in the Alclad colors. And then the last little bit of an update here before the end, I'm just getting the machine guns ready to be installed. As I said, I didn't install the interior structure for the guns. It didn't quite want to fit right, and none of the guns lined up properly. So I basically just cut the guns off of the internal structure that it comes in the kit, and I just kind of glued them loose into the openings at the front. It's not 100% perfect, but it was a lot easier than having to make any type of internal structure and messing around. I didn't want to make this kit any type of crazy work. It was just a very quick kind of cleansing my palette build. So I just went simple and just glued them in. And finally, we have the P-38 Lightning. This is the old 1960s monogram kit, and it is very, very basic in its detail. Very toy-like in the way of its construction and everything. The nose was supposed to be able to open up and close to see all the guns inside, but the detail was just horrible. The fit is pretty bad, gaps everywhere, massive rivets. So I went through and puttied, sanded, cleaned up a lot of those seams, hit a lot of those imperfections as much as I could. I sanded down the rivets just to, they still look way out of scale if you catch them in the right light. I don't know if that's showing up on the camera or not, but they're just massive, like, you know, fist-sized rivets. But I sanded them down just to make them a little less prominent, so it looks a little bit more just like surface detail rather than these big massive rivets sticking out of it everywhere. So it was a bit of work on that, hiding the rivets, doing a bit of puttying and sanding. Painted the night scheme just so that the black would hide a lot of those imperfections. Still did the Alclad for the exhaust area, give it a bit of punch. But other than that, I just kind of did what I could. The canopy had gaps everywhere, but a lot of just sort of white glue, you know, Elmer's white glue hid a lot of that. So I mean, like, again, with a little bit of strategic work, you can make this look like a decent kit. And I mean, considering, again, this is a 1960s monogram toy-like kit, it actually looks really, really good. The decals surprisingly went down beautifully. No issues at all with that. And there you have my finished P-38 Lightning.
Thank you for watching, guys, and as always, if you are interested in any of the content you see, you can access my website at www.seans-aviation.com. You can see all the latest pictures of aircraft and museums and the build logs of all of my current models and past models on that site. And if you're interested in any of this content, please click the subscribe button here on YouTube to follow more. Thank you very much, and see you guys next time.